Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Crayli Fernandez. Today, I would like to discuss about researching listening and mention a few methodologies to this important research in applied linguistics. First of all, I would like to mention the most important points to be discussed in this oral presentation. First, the description of researching listening. Second, variables that influences on listening. Third, research methodologies. And the last one, sample studies of researching listening. The first point to be discussed is listening. According to Howard and Dakin in 1974, listening is the ability to identify and understand what others are saying. This important process involves understanding a speaker's accent or pronunciations, the speaker's grammar and vocabulary, and comprehension of meaning. A good listener is capable of doing these four things simultaneously. Furthermore, listening also involves two important cognitive processes. They are bottom-up and top-down. So, bottom-up refers to when people construct meaning from the incoming sound stream by gradually combining increasingly larger units of meaning from the phoneme level up to the discourse level to build comprehension of an utterance or a text. On the other hand, top-down refers to a process when people use context, prior knowledge, for example, topic, genre, culture, and other schema knowledge in long-term memory, and listeners' expectation to build a conceptual framework around the specific listening task. What I was saying is that these two processes are totally cognitive when people listen information. Let's continue with the second point, which is variable that may influence comprehension. As I said before, there are two important cognitive processes in listening comprehension. However, listening involves more than cognitive processing. So it means that there are two essential factors that influence listening comprehension. They are affective and the second one, which is comprehension. In the affective factors, we have motivation, self-efficacy, and also anxiety, which further limit how much information short-term memory can process at a given moment. Other learners' variables that may impact comprehension include background knowledge of the topic of the text, proficiency level in the target language, age, metacognitive knowledge about listening, strategy use, native language listening ability, working memory capacity, and auditory discrimination ability, according to Baker 2015. As the third point, we have methodologies that can be applied in research listening. The first one is to measure listening, and they are proficiency test and free written recall protocol. Proficiency tests are used to assign a level of listening proficiency to participants in studies. And the second one, which is free written recall protocols, they represent a good alternative. It means that participants listen to a text and immediately afterwards write in their native language or in L2. as much information as possible about what they have understood. Methodologies of how to investigate the product of listening. We have two. The first one is experimental research and the second one is correlational research. The experimental research is focused on the outcomes and the product of listening. The second one is correlational research and it involves determining the degree of relationship between different variables hypothesized to be related in the listening process. At last but not least, we have methodologies of how to investigate the process of listening. And they are so common, as you can see. We have questionnaires, interviews, diaries, observation notes, and auditory perception processing. Now let's consider to another point, which is sample study and its results. This sample study was aimed to design a carefully and controlled quasi-experimental study to test the following hypotheses. Number 1. The experimental group receiving metacognitive instruction will outperform the control group. And the second one is the less skilled listener in the experimental group would make greater gains in listening achievement than their more skilled counterparts. Nevertheless, this sample study is a good example of research that is both product and process oriented, using different research methodology to explore the development of metacognitive knowledge for listening comprehension. Now, let me move to this comparison chart. As you can see, we have research article, structure, research method, and major findings. So the first one is the effects of listening journals in the development university students' listening skill. The structure is introduction, method, results, finding, and discussion. The research instrument was questionnaire and the research method was qualitative method. One of the major findings of this article was to apply and analyze the use of listening journals in order to develop listening skills of university students. The second one is, can we teach effective listening? An exploratory study. The structure was introduction, research approach, finding, and discussion of findings. The research instrument was a survey and the research method was a surveyed research. And one of the major findings was to contribute to the gap in research about listening in a university setting by evaluating students' perception of whether a formal listening intervention. And number 3 is listening journals for extensive and intensive listening practice. The structure was a brief research overview, a listening journals, activity, and the conclusion. The research instrument used was test, and the research method used was experimental method. The major findings was every student has found the listening journal to be not only interesting and useful for listening practice, but a source of improvement for their real-world listening skills. As final considerations, we have listening plays an essential role as part of communication process. Research in listening enhances the communication quality. Research in listening presents an overview of methodologies for investigating listening in applied linguistics. When researchers use various methodologies, it can contribute to a growing body of evidence-based knowledge developed by an engaged community of listening researchers. Finally, as you can see, there are the references of this paper. Thanks a lot for your interest, and if you have any questions, just let me know. I would like to finish this oral presentation with this quote. Knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens, by Jimi Hendrix. Thank you so much. It was Crayly Fernandez.